60 Minutes with Angela starts right now.
Nigeria's Minister for Information, Lai Mohammed, says, and I quote him now, between 2006 and 2013, just 55 people allegedly stole a total of 1.34 trillion naira in Nigeria. And instead of a national outrage, all we hear are nonsensical statements that government is fighting only the opposition or that government is engaging in a vendetta. End of quote. Well, hello and welcome. This is 60 Minutes with me, Angela Ajitumobi. Thank you for joining me on the program today. And so Lai Mohammed, Nigeria's information minister, was expanding the debate on what Nigerians have come to know as Dasuki Gate. Remember that over $2 billion was meant to purchase arms to empower Nigerian soldiers to fight Boko Haram in the northeast of Nigeria. But the sum was diverted and shared among government officials and officials of the People's Democratic Party under the administration of the former president, Goodluck Jonathan. And so when Muhammadu Buhari became president just under a year ago, his vow was to wipe out his scourge that he says threatens the very existence of our country, Nigeria. Now, as the investigations gather momentum, the opposition and the former ruling party, People's Democratic Party, says Buhari is on a revenge mission. Quote, "It is being done as if only members of the People's Democratic Party are corrupt." Those are the words of Ann Briggs. Well, that's where my host today comes in. A legal practitioner, a politician, former member of the PDP, now in the APC. I'm interested to know what he thinks now that he's crossed over to the other side. So, join me after the break as I count down 60 minutes with the man who was the chief of staff of the campaign organization of the PDP's Adedosumu in the 2011 Lagos governorship election, Ladipo Johnson. Welcome back. Welcome, Mr. Johnson. Thank you for coming on the program with me today.
Thanks for having me.
The first thing we have to clarify is this movement of yours from the PDP to the APC. The last time I knew you were active politically, you were working with Adedosumu, who was the PDP's governorship candidate in Lagos State governorship elections. That was in 2011. I didn't know you had moved over to the APC.
Yes, I moved just about the same time that the likes of former Governor Rabiu Kwankwaso.
Okay, when the five governors.
Yes,
oh, all right.
The others were moving across.
Yes.
There were many issues within the PDP then, and unfortunately they were not sorted out. And
Yes.
We made the move we made, and we came together with the others that formed the APC.
Right.
And we thank God that, yes, we won the elections, but we now pray that we do things
You handle
properly.
the victory.
Yes,
You know, because a lot of people are saying that the APC concentrated on that election. It looked like they didn't think about what to do following the win.
Well, if I want to be cynical about it,
Yes.
I'd say that the APC was maybe put together just to get rid of what we term the incompetent government of Goodluck Jonathan.
Right.
Now, that has been achieved. It is now left for us to sit together and ensure that we put our house in order and do what can help stabilize the country first.
Right.
Before we even talk about moving the country to the next step.
And in stabilizing the country, I know that one of the three pillars on which President Buhari campaigned was the war against corruption. I also know your view on that. You don't think it is selective. I mean, the president is issuing fresh orders to the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission every day as we speak. So he's not backing down.
He won't. I mean, he's been consistent over the years. The fact that he just couldn't understand what he was seeing when he saw it. That's why he used the phrase mind-boggling figures.
We can assume then that going into that race to the presidency, what he met there wasn't what he actually anticipated.
No one could have anticipated what we're all discovering now.
Yes.
And I tell you, this is the tip of the iceberg.
Everyone says that.
Yes, it's because, look, although it seems so much,
Yes.
you're talking about $2.1 billion, this is just the office of the NSA. We haven't spoken about NNPC and all the other
And we have over 300 agencies.
Yes, so it's a lot.
Let's start off with Lai Mohammed's figures now, because everyone is shocked. 55 people stealing a total of 1.34 trillion naira. I mean, we're only just getting used to the billion figures, and we're talking trillion here. I'll just give a brief breakdown for the sake of the viewers who are watching. That 1.34 trillion naira, this is a breakdown. Mr. Mohammed says it is more than a quarter of the 2015 national budget. Now, 15 former governors stole 146.84 billion. 4 former ministers, 7.05 billion. 5 former legislators, 8.35 billion. 12 former public servants, and that's from federal and state governments, that's 14.18 billion. 8 bankers, 524 billion, and 11 businessmen, 653 billion. So that is it. 55 people, a total of 1.34 trillion naira. This is not Dasuki Gate now. And he says instead of a national outrage, they're getting statements saying the government is prosecuting only the opposition or is on a vendetta. What would be your reaction to those who say this war will not be fair unless it goes back to 1999?
These figures are alleged figures.
Yes.
I guess what they did was maybe look at the cases in court. EFCC saying we're charging this person 50 billion.
Yes, and add all the figures together.
But basically, I say that Nigerians as a whole, unfortunately, do not really believe that the country belongs to them. I say this because if you actually feel that you own something or you
have a
part
stake,
owner, or you're a stakeholder in something, and you believe that that thing is a good thing and you need to keep it for generations to come, then you will appreciate the sanctity of it. Now, what you find is that unfortunately the country is so polarized at the moment. And a lot of people do not care what was stolen or allegedly is stolen. All they're interested in is that, oh, the man you're accusing is a Christian, I'm a Christian.
Oh, he's from
He's
my
from
place.
my tribe, you understand? So I'm not even willing to listen to you, even if I'm faced with evidence and everything. You're persecuting the opposition. And that is not the case. And I keep telling a lot of my friends who come up with the same thing, say that, look, if you feel that anyone within the APC at the moment, in government or outside government, was involved in one way or the other in his state or her state or what have you, then at that level, let them do something. The president is president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. We have a federal constitution.
Yes.
He cannot delve into matters that happened in, say, Rivers State or what have you. There are procedures for that.
Yes.
And the president has to ensure that he achieves the maximum possible for the people of Nigeria within 4 years.
Yes.
Now, that may not allow him to go back to 1999.
It's limited by time.
Exactly. Because every time you say you are looking into the past, it's costing you man-hours, it's costing you money, and there's an alternative for Ghana. The time you're using to investigate a matter, you could actually be using it to work on education, healthcare,
Yes.
or what have you. But you have to strike a balance. And so politically, I always say to people, it is not left to the president to look at 1999. If President Jonathan thought or believed that he had to look into what was handed over to him, he ought to have done that at that time.
He had his opportunity,
He had the
to
opportunity
do
to
that.
do it. But this president has taken over, he's seen the books, and he's like, wow, I can't continue with all this, you understand? And
Yes.
so it's natural that he says, look, come and account to me. You're the person who handed over to me.
Yes.
I want to move forward, but I need money to move forward.
Yes.
And I think the way this money went, I don't believe in it, So it's as simple as that.
I was reading former senior special assistant to President Jonathan Doyin Okukpe, and he says that, there is nothing that was spent towards the election in PDP that the APC didn't spend as well. We've lost demarcation line between what is state money and what is personal money. A lot of people don't see it the way you see it. People think that the money of the state belongs to the governor to do what he wants with.
That reminds me of when I was a kid, back in Zuo, government money in government house. Well, I can put what Chief Okukpe has said in another way that some of my friends say. They keep saying that the money being spent or the money that was spent, as you say, belongs to the government, and the investigation that the president should investigate the campaign funds of the APC.
As well,
but I keep telling them that the investigation going on is not about campaign funds. People have forgotten that.
Yes.
The issue being investigated at the moment is $2.1 billion that was meant for defense procurement that the NSA mismanaged.
The foundation of this is not campaign funds.
Not the campaign funds. It's just that some of it has strayed into the campaign. And as with all other Nigerians, that even the service chiefs are being looked at the moment, because apparently about $1 trillion was traced to some of their accounts.
Yes.
So that wasn't for the campaign,
I
but it's part of it. So the investigation is not at the moment about campaign funds.
Yes.
It just happens that some of it, I think, was allegedly spent on the campaign.
So coming to what we call Dasuki Gate now, the debate is going on out there about whether or not the former president should be summoned now by the EFCC to answer questions. You know as well as I do that no sitting president has ever ordered an investigation of his predecessor or the former president. Do you think that will ever happen?
If we have to have a clean slate, as it were, and if this anti-corruption drive must be seen to have some form of integrity, and naturally, with what we've heard so far, that has to happen. It will occur sooner or later.
Okay.
The way I see it is this. At the moment, what we've heard is that the former president authorized $2.1 billion in total for security, purchase of arms.
Yes.
Now, the fact that the money wasn't appropriated for some of it, for instance, the Abacha loot that came back. You remember that the former Minister of Finance released, or someone released
some of the money,
a paper into the public domain that showed that she actually wrote a a note to Mr. President, former President, to say that I have transferred so amount to the account of the NSA.
Yes.
This is a loan because the money was not appropriated for by the National Assembly.
Yes.
Now the issues there, one, you know, and President Jonathan also knows that the money is not appropriated for. So that alone, you're spending something that you have no permission to spend. It's not a security vote. Money that was recovered from Abacha.
Yes, and if I remember correctly, in recovering that money, there were some conditions attached
yes,
as well. So in breaching those conditions,
Exactly.
is there not an offense committed there?
Well, it will depend on the particular thing. I'm not sure about the specific conditions now. Well, basically, that alone shows that there's a matter he has to answer or clarify.
Yes.
But at the moment, swinging back to Dasuki himself, the former NSA, it is only if Dasuki, somewhere down the line, says that, well, I mean, a young person of about 10 or 15 will say that, okay, $2.1 billion. Dasuki is not a madman. No matter what you say, he's
Yes.
not a madman, an
Yes.
intelligent man.
Yes.
He wouldn't just ordinarily say, oh, I want to give so million dollars to PDP delegates. He was not a member of the PDP, or he's not a member of the PDP.
Yes.
I want to give so to PDP delegates. I want to give so to person for the elections and what have you. Someone must have instructed him.
And that's the dilemma here, Mr. Johnson.
So until he says who instructed him or shows the paper and says, well, yes, I got approval from you for arms,
yes.
but this is what we used it for. And the reason I gave so to Yuguda was because
This
so
was what you
person told
authorized.
me.
Yes. But you and I know that the way government operates, it could have been a verbal instruction.
Yes.
And no NSA would ignore a verbal instruction from Mr. President. Perhaps that's why we've seen the former Minister of Finance making sure that she had documentation every time she was asked to release monies. So it may not have been a written instruction.
The long and short of it
Yes.
is that it all depends on Datsuki's thinking and his mens rea. He may decide, if he is found guilty, to fall alone,
To go down alone.
go down alone, or he may say, well, I wasn't even a member of the party.
Yes.
I didn't even benefit from this thing.
Yes.
I sent so someone told me to, and then the rest is left for the court. It's not something that has to be beyond reasonable doubt.
Do you think that the fact that after that election, the former President Jonathan's early conceding defeat, should that work in his favor? Should that provide a soft landing for him? In other words, because he did that, should we leave him out of this investigation?
Not with the magnitude of what we're looking at. He did well
Yes.
by conceding defeat. But the magnitude of what we're looking at, for the future, it is not something that you just let go of.
Yes.
Look at Nimasa. We've started. We already have about 3 or 4 cases on Nimasa. A land deal for 13 billion. They're not prospecting oil there. You just want to build a university, a maritime university.
Yeah.
If you look at Nimasa, by the time you get into the NNPC, I don't think we will have people who will still be saying by that time that this is a witch hunt or you're persecuting the opposition.
Yeah.
I don't think so. I
Right.
think that the magnitude of what we're looking at
Yes.
should make Nigerians sad. The issue is not that it was a PDP thing or an APC thing
Yes.
or UPN or NPN or whatever. It's the fact that a few people, even within the People's Democratic Party,
Yes.
I can tell you, because I was there for many years
Yes.
since inception, a lot of them are complaining.
You mean this kind of money
What's
was
going on?
going around?
Exactly.
So
Just a few-
there were
few people
different
there.
categories within
yes.
the PDP.
It's
Some were the
animal
bigger
farm.
boys.
Some are more equal than
Animals.
others, as it were. So it's a big shame. A lot of people, a lot of members of the PDP wouldn't have had no idea. You understand? In fact, when the news broke, I was able to talk to some people who are still within the PDP. and they were actually within the party. You know, there's a difference between the party
Yes.
and people who are ministers, people in government.
Yes, in presidency and all that.
And those in the party were like, huh? Was this going on, these people? And we kept begging for money to run the party.
To run the campaign.
Exactly.
We'll take our first break now. When we come back, I want us to take it from the point where, you know, because a lot of people have said President Jonathan was very naive about a lot of things going on in his government. Is it possible that these monies were being shared without his knowledge? So join us again after the break.
Nice question.
Angela, that's a great question.
It's a good question.
It is difficult to respond to that question.
That is a serious question. Angela, that is a very great question.
Great question, Angela.
You know, Angela, that's a very difficult question.
That's a great question, Angela.
Okay, that's a great question.
Angela, that's a tough one for me.
That's a good question. Good question.
I love to ask questions. I think it's what I do best. I think that the fastest way to learn anything is to ask questions. The right questions, that is. Questions that help you get to the heart of the matter.
60 Minutes with Angela. Again, answers to every question you always wanted to ask.
So what is 60 Minutes with Angela all about? It's not an interview. I like to think it's a conversation between two people making the news, people who are in the news, and those who become the news. And the whole idea is to inform, to educate, or to clarify, as the case may be. It is an art getting people to answer the questions that everyone is thinking in their minds. And that's what we try to do on 60 Minutes with Angela. I ask all the questions that everyone's thinking about and no one wants to voice. All the questions you always wanted to ask, you get those answers on 60 Minutes with Angela. Every week on this station, 60 Minutes with Angela, getting answers to every question you always wanted to ask. Well, welcome back. If you've just joined us, it's 60 Minutes with me, Angela Ajitumobi. On my hot seat today, Ladipo Johnson, a legal practitioner and a politician from the All Progressives Congress, APC. So do you think that those who say that, you know, perhaps as the former president Ibrahim Babangida said, he said he wasn't clueless. As a president, he was a little naive as far as a lot of things were concerned. Is it possible, though, that he didn't know these monies were being shared, number one, and that the whole idea for sharing these monies for the campaign was for the monies to get to the electorate? So can we also say that with the monies being shared, we know now that a lot of that money didn't get to the voters? Could that be a reason why Goodluck Jonathan lost the election?
Well, the first leg of the question, I'll say, yes, it is possible, but it is highly improbable that he would sit there and not know things going on.
Yes.
He has he has security reports and things like that. And naturally, when it comes to the election period,
Yes.
he would be meeting with leaders of the party, people like Chief Tony Anene and others.
Yes.
And on a daily basis, they will know that they need to work here, they need to work harder there, and what have you. And I tell you, now I'm speaking politically.
Yes.
I believe that their main problem was the postponement for 6 weeks.
That 6-week
Yeah.
postponement, was that when most of the sharing went on?
If you recall,
Yes.
I don't know whether it was shared or not, but that was the time we had the visits to the obas, to
Yes.
the churches,
Yes.
to what have you.
Yes.
It was a period where they realized that the mood in the country had changed.
Yes.
Now, based on security issues, I remember this same Dasuki spoke at Chatham House in London.
In England, yes. And that was where he pushed the idea for the
yes, for the
postponement.
postponement.
Yes.
The postponement came, and I think it was let's throw money at the country.
But the
And
money didn't get to the voters.
Good. And that goes to the second part of your question.
Yes.
Is that why he lost? He had lost the election even before 2015. I was so sure. I was in a meeting with some leaders of the APC.
Yes.
And they were like, look, you came in from the PDP not too long ago, and everything. And I said to them, I said, look, if we're not careful, the APC might lose Lagos. But I'm so sure, so certain that we're winning the federal election.
Why were you so sure? Was it because, as we journalists were hearing at the time, a lot of the PDP members weren't telling President Jonathan the truth, the raw truth about how people felt on the outside?
The whole problem stemmed from the Latin maxim in law. We say pacta sunt servanda. Agreements are made to be kept. Forget the economy.
Yes.
Forget other things. Whether he was doing well
or not,
history will judge. But the fact was that politically he had breached an agreement.
What was that agreement?
The rotation agreement. 6 years, it goes back to the north.
You know what gets me is that at the time that a lot of people were denying it. I mean, I remember Kingsley Kuku saying to me, if anyone has that agreement where he signed, bring it out.
You don't have to sign agreements. Such agreements
could be verbal.
Are verbal. When you make agreements politically, look, there's really no difference, and I'm saying this, there's really no difference between being in the mafia, being in the military, or being in politics. Your word
is your bond.
So if you reach an agreement, then you had better come back to the same people and try to convince them and give them reasons why you cannot keep to your end of the agreement. If that is done, and that is where the problem stems from, and he made the mistake of getting on the wrong side with former President Obasanjo.
Yes.
Now, former President Obasanjo, politically, from how I've studied him, may not damage you politically in Ogun State. He's not a grassroots man, and that is where they made the mistake.
They thought
there was no
his influence was limited only to Ogun State.
There was no need to try to disgrace him or fight with him. You understand?
Yes.
Because he couldn't harm them in Ogun State. But I tell you, politically, he can harm you in the north and internationally. And that is where President Jonathan's problem stemmed from.
Especially if former President Obasanjo was in the know about the agreement you say was breached.
No, he had to be in the know because he was the one that brought this together. You will recall that the former governor of Adamawa State, Nyako, Admiral Nyako, he stated when the problem started, you can check the papers, he said there was a time, I think it was after President Jonathan referred to, he didn't mention anyone, he said some elder statesmen are like mortal touts.
Yes.
Now, Nyako said that you're an ingrate, that this man brought you to the governor's forum. And even before saying anything, prostrated before them. That please, this is your brother. He's going to do 2 years to end Yar'Adua's tenure. No minority has been there. Let's support him. And the work started. And you recall that it was Jigawa State, Sule Lamido.
Yes.
Sule Lamido and some of the others started to take President Jonathan round at that time. And he won the North then. So politically, he had that problem. And then the other problem was that President Buhari has always been, up to this time, unelectable.
Why was he always considered unelectable?
Because a lot of people feel that, or will tell you that, he didn't have the support or the middle to upper classes in the North. But somehow, towards the end of 2014, you see that there was a coming together.
Yes.
And then internationally as well. The international community had never been a fan of President Buhari, if you recall.
Yes.
Over the last 5, 6 years, since he left government. They had never. And then all of a sudden, as we were hitting the beginning of 2015, things had changed. And anytime someone actually said to me that he was on a flight coming into Nigeria, And there was someone who was working with the EU
Yes.
on the plane, and the person asked him that, who do you think will win the elections? And he said that, well, I'm not sure. The European said to him that, oh, we know that it has to be Buhari, not Jonathan. So there was already
A shift.
yes, in the international. If you
Yes.
look back,
Yes.
it was an interesting period.
Yes.
And I love to study history, and I love to look at things like this because you learn about the future. So, as far as I'm concerned, where you have 19 states
Yes.
in the north out of 36,
Six.
and you cannot win 10, 11 of those 19 states, there's no way you'll be president. By that time, it was a done deal. Unfortunately for President Jonathan, the efforts made, two things spoiled his efforts in those last 6 weeks.
Yes.
One, as you say, it seems that the money did not get down to the grassroots, although most people had their minds made up by that time.
Yes.
The second is that there were two incidents that just finished the elections in the north.
What were these incidents?
One, the former First Lady said President Buhari was brain dead or something. to
At a
that-
campaign,
that-
yes.
That was one. A lot of people in the north felt I was going too far.
Why? Because they're a patriarchal society?
Exactly, things like that. But the final straw was the statement she made during the campaign. Now, we don't like them over there, they have their children and leave them on the streets or something like that. And I-
Derogatory comments, yes.
And so even the pro-PDP people in the north, and there were a lot of them,
Yes.
felt ostracized and felt, these are not statements you make quarter to elections.
Politically,
Yeah,
anyway.
yeah.
I mean, if you make them in your
So-
sitting room,
Yeah. So, I mean, people would have 1,001 reasons why he lost or why President Buhari won.
yes.
Well, these are just some of the key things that I saw
Yes.
at that time.
One of the interesting things that's come out of the Dasuki Gate is, well, two interesting things. First, that the monies that some people were alleged to have collected wasn't exactly what they got. In other words, I signed for 100 million, but I didn't actually get 100 million. The second point was some who collected didn't do an onward delivery to those that were meant to collect. So I was meant to collect something from you, and I'm in shock now that Mr. Johnson actually got 100 million.
Exactly.
Those are the kind of things we're finding out now. What do you think? How do you think this will play out? Enemies are going to be created.
Well, they've already been created. Because, as you said, some people, there's an incident where one of the people purportedly collected 100 million.
Yes.
And then, but the people in his zone say that he came and said he only had $30,000 for the work they wanted to do.
Yes.
And in which case, there's a shortfall if you look at the exchange rate at that time.
Yes.
And
This is interesting.
Exactly. Again, I think the reason for that is twofold. One, most of them feel that it's our share of the national cake.
Yes.
This has been going on in government.
Yes.
Election time is their time to
And
make
someone
whatever
said
they
to
want
me
make.
that some actually knew that Jonathan was going to lose.
Exactly.
So why bother spending this 100 on an election? He's going to lose anyway. Let me
Exactly.
just take
That's
my
it.
cut.
Or the other way around. A lot of my friends within the PDP in Lagos
Yes.
could not even begin to imagine a situation where the PDP would be out of power or out of government at the center.
Really?
So they just felt, no matter what you say, no matter what you want to do, some magic is going to happen.
Yes,
He's going to win.
yes.
And I kept telling my friends, I said, look, I was involved at the national level for the campaign.
Yes.
And I kept telling them, I said, look, I go to the north virtually every other day. I said, there's no way he's going to win over there.
With all
And-
the Almajiri
Yes.
schools and...
Exactly. As I say, you have 19 states
Yes.
there. If you can't scratch the surface there, how can you win a national election? It's not possible. So, but they just felt that it was going to happen. The PDP had some magic and everything. And I kept telling them, I said the PDP of 99, 2003, and what have you, is not the PDP of 2015.
Yes.
When you are all powerful, you are sitting on something. But by the time that is removed from underneath you, and you do not have the consciousness to know that it has been removed, then you're going to fall. And that's what happens.
Join us again after the break.
Nice question.
Angela, that's a great question.
It's a good question.
It is difficult to respond to that question. That is a serious question.
Angela, that is a very great question.
Great question, Angela.
You know, Angela, that's a very difficult question.
That's a great question, Angela.
Okay, that's a great question.
Angela, that's a tough one for me.
That's a good question. Good question.
I love to ask questions. I think it's what I do best. You see, I think that the fastest way to learn anything is to ask questions. The right questions, that is. Questions that help you get to the heart of the matter.
60 Minutes with Angela. Again, answers to every question you always wanted to ask.
So what is 60 Minutes with Angela all about? It's not an interview. I like to think it's a conversation between two people making the news, people who are in the news, and those who become the news. And the whole idea is to inform, to educate, or to clarify, as the case may be. It is an art getting people to answer the questions that everyone is thinking in their minds. And that's what we try to do on 60 Minutes with Angela. I ask all the questions that everyone's thinking about and no one wants to voice. All the questions you always wanted to ask, you get those answers on 60 Minutes with Angela. Every week on this station, 60 Minutes with Angela, getting answers to every question you always wanted to ask. Welcome back. My concluding moments now with Ladipo Johnson, a politician from the stable of the All Progressives Congress, APC. What do you say to those who, some of the alleged receivers of the money is now saying they're not refunding, because the truth is, if I was giving 100 million, for a campaign, I've expended some of it legitimately. Should I be blamed for not knowing the source of that money?
Well, it's a two-way thing, and there are two categories. First is the category of people who received directly from Dasuki. The question then will arise then, what work did you do for the office of the NSA to have been given 2.1 billion naira?
Right.
If you did
media work
for him or for the NSA, where is it? If you did it for the party, is the NSA a member of the party? So those are in a different category.
Right.
Now, there are others who will say that, a national leader of the party called them to a meeting, and after the meeting they said, 100 million transferred to you, 100 million to you for this zone, for that zone, for that zone.
Yes.
For the meetings you've been having. Now, I tend to feel sorry for them.
Yes.
Maybe because I'm a politician. Because most times when you're giving money like that,
nobody ever asks,
where did this money come from? But then, if the prosecutors decide to be difficult, then they can go, and I would ask several questions. I say, as a former national chairman or whatever of the party, how do you fund your party?
Yes. Is this normal?
Exactly. Now, even if it is normal, it has become abnormal now. You understand? Now, did you have a fundraising? Don't you contribute?
Yes.
If you had a fundraising, who would keep that money?
Would it be the NSA's office?
Exactly. It would be the national treasurer.
This raises a lot of questions, Mr. Johnson. In other words, now everyone has to be careful when you're doing business.
Whether private business or
whether private business. So I don't want you to pay me what you owe me, and then you're paying me from arm's money. They're putting a lot of responsibility.
If I'm paying you what I owe you, it's easier for you. Now you didn't know Mr. Johnson went to steal the money to pay you, but I worked for him. This is my invoice. or these are my invoices, and he paid me.
Very good analogy you brought in.
Yeah.
So why then are we angry, are Nigerians angry that the media house collected 2 billion naira?
Yeah, because the media house did not do work for the NSA. The media house, if at all it did any work
yes.
for the political party or for the presidential campaign. So you should have been paid by the campaign or by the party, not the NSA.
You know,
it's
Johnson,
simple.
our politics is very fluid.
Yes.
You know that.
Yeah.
I mean, a man goes into the president and says, I can run some media campaigns for you.
Yes.
And the president calls the NSA and says, give this man 2 billion.
Therein lies the illegality. It's so clear.
I mean, is the NSA expected to tell the president, no, you can't do that?
Yes.
Is the media man expected to tell the president, no, the NSA can't pay me?
That fluidity,
yes,
and the inability to say no to superiors is what has landed us where we are at today. And I assure you, after today,
nobody will be fluid anymore.
In fact, it has started. No one. If you talk to a civil servant and say, okay, just bring out our guy, please sign this. You understand?
Yes.
That is what will happen. Because people now realize that some 15 years after, someone can open a file. Say, who approved this? Was there any competitive bidding process? These are the questions, and the questions, and the questions, and the questions. I don't think it's about slowing down the way we do business, either with government or within each other. But it will lead to sanity within the system.
How do you quantify the value of a marabout? You know, because someone collected 400 million naira for spiritual warfare. You know, how do you get a refund on that? How do you tell somebody, or how does the person say, I can't refund because the marabouts were paid for legitimate work?
They did their work and God said no. You understand? So it's as simple as that. But really, it's the same thing in that situation. Where the spiritual work being done, or the spiritual contractors or subcontractors.
I mean, is that a normal thing that any country should be formalizing, marabout? I thought it would be something that no one would know about, to be done in secret.
If we have a situation whereby a civil servant can come to your church and pay tithes of about 50, 60 million, 10 million, even 5 million, and you collect it.
The church hails him.
If Ladipo Johnson, as I am today, in 2 weeks' time, if I buy a Rolls-Royce Phantom and I drive down the road, I know that in Lagos people say, Lado, well done. If my mother were alive, she would say, come here.
What is
Where
this?
did you get this from? You understand?
Yes.
So that has left society. People do not question. One of my godparents from, I think, Trinidad, and she said to me, she said, over there, even if you give the Red Cross money and they're not sure about the source of your wealth, they'll return it. So until our churches, I use churches because I'm a Christian, and our mosques begin to question the people they call to be chairman of the harvest committee and whatever, then we're still joking.
I see why many people didn't want Buhari as president.
Yeah, but I think that he has a passion for this anti-corruption thing, and it's been with him. It's not something new.
Yes,
it's always been his mantra, and I think that for the next 4 years at least, we need to. We said it at the beginning. Stabilize the system.
Yes,
and put structures back into the ministries and what have you. These laws have always been there.
Yes. Everyone says that we have the best laws on paper.
Exactly. But once we begin to follow that, then people will realize that in the next 2 to 3 years, it will even be more inviting to foreign investors to invest in a place where they know Now, if they bid for a particular job or contract and they're the best for it, they'll get it. And they can do it without someone disturbing them for 20% or whatever at every stage. If this government is able to stabilize us at the federal level, and I tell you, it will trickle down, even into the private sector, then things will be done properly. We are all culpable, all guilty, even in our private businesses. We are, but we all have to start to look at making sure that the best practices are done in everything, and then it will be easier to turn around the economy and what have you. We have serious problems. If you look at the price of crude as we speak, I do hope that this government is successful in trying to stabilize things and instill discipline into the system.
Well, I was listening to the president at the I Am Osigwe Foundation annual lecture on December 11, and he says Nigerians must come to a point where they will say enough is enough, and that until we get to that point, we won't get what he called a new state and a new status. Do you agree with him there?
Oh yes, that doesn't take rocket science. We know. Look, something unbudgeted for, unplanned for. You have kids in school, possibly they may have to face medical challenges or what have you. Yet someone dies, and then you're willing to go and spend some 300,000 of unearned money. These are the things that we take and carry into government. And then it's like, oh, let's borrow. Future generations will pay. And that's where we have the problem.
Well, finally, Mr. Johnson, what next for you politically? Perhaps you're taking a shot at the governorship of Lagos State?
2019 is a long way away.
It's never long in politics.
No, well, the situation is fluid. I've always, as you know, I've always been into politics, and it's a disease, and one will continue to be into politics. I don't see myself leaving politics. Well, we'll wait and see. I'm a member of the APC. We'll see, and by 2017, we'll begin to know what way one would want to contribute to the country moving forward. Either at my state, or my constituency, or my district, or
your ward.
So hopefully one will be actively involved.
Thank you very much, Mr. Johnson, for coming on 60 Minutes with me.
Thank you for having me. I've enjoyed myself.
And thank you for watching. I'm Angela Ajitumobi.